Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network at 21stcenturywire.com. We're live on X, Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, Facebook Live, and also on the audio streams after the program, iTunes, Spotify, and the other fine podcasting broadcast networks. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Patrick Henningsen. We've got a special guest, Arnaud Develay, political consultant, author, and also geopolitical analyst. We're going to be discussing the situation with Ukraine, but more specifically, the imminent downfall of Zelensky. All the writing is on the wall. The signals are all there. We're going to talk about that. It's going to be a short episode today. We're not going to be able to do the Overdrive segment because of another commitment we have after the program, but this will be a very informative segment, I assure you. And this is very important because this could change the trajectory of the Ukraine conflict, full stop. And also, it's going to possibly change the European calculus because everyone is all in. Everyone has poured everything into Zelensky as the sort of figurehead of this proxy war. When he goes, are things going to remain the same, or are we going into a different phase? To discuss this and the nuances around it, very important conversation, is Arnaud Develay joining us on the live link right now. Arnaud, thank you for joining us on the Sunday Wire this week.
Hello, Patrick. How are you?
Very well, very well. And Arnaud, we just want to bring the attention of our listeners here to the current situation. We're calling this downfall. Now, before we get into the particulars here, what is your current feeling, or what is the current feeling in Moscow on the future of Zelensky? I know he's a problem. He's been a kind of an obstacle for the Kremlin. They've said many times we can't really sign anything significant if this is the guy signing it, because they said he's kind of expired. He's out of mandate. He can't really author any sort of major negotiations anyway. What's the feeling on Zelensky right now?
Well, pretty much as you just said it. First of all, Zelensky has reached his date of péremption, as far as the Ukrainian presidential election having been somewhat cancelled. And so for the time being, we could say that there is no president per se. There is a constitutional provision which allows for the president of the Rada, the parliament, to handle current affairs until an election is held. But that constitutional provision obviously was never followed through. So we find ourselves in this kind of legal imbroglio, this kind of loophole. And in the context of negotiations, obviously that creates a problem, because we are negotiating with someone who is not habilitated to negotiate, and even less to sign any kind of paperwork. So to make a long story short, this is pretty much the problem. And I'm not even going to get into the substance of the negotiation, obviously, because what's the point to negotiate with someone who cannot even, who's not even habilitated to sign any papers? So that means that the Istanbul cycle, essentially for the time being, focuses on humanitarian issues, but in no way gets into territorial issues, the status of Ukraine out of NATO, because that's one of the core Russian demands, and the rights of the Russian-speaking minorities. So right now, what we've been hearing for the last few months is this trope of a ceasefire. But again, Russia has no incentive to conclude a ceasefire under any conditions, short of a unilateral withdrawal from Ukrainian troops out of the administrative borders of the four new subjects of the Russian Federation, the four regions, which voted by referendum in September 2022 to join the Russian Federation. So this is where we are right now. Essentially, it's kind of a deadlock. And I would add that it's been very complicated to even get Zelensky to play ball, even in thus far as pretending to want to negotiate anything. We understand the Americans have been somewhat urging him to to play along. And but now today the guy seems to be doing another 360 per Annabella Baerbock, but 180, where he's saying he's willing to meet Putin and discuss all that needs to be discussed. But again, on the Russian side, we're somewhat very reserved about it. There's no point, to give him political credibility by posing on a type of a photo with him. So, that's the situation in Moscow right now. And meanwhile, the Russian army is advancing steadily, inexorably, with a key military capture in the region of Pokrovsk, which we've heard a lot in recent weeks, with gigantic cauldrons forming around those key nodes, which once they are neutralized as a hub, that will spell big trouble for the Ukrainian armed forces and could open the way for a rush to the Dnipropetrovsk region. So this is where we are now, as far as the general context is concerned. Now, what brings us to discuss the situation today, in as far as the alleged downfall of Zelensky, he hasn't gone yet, is this kind of out of the blue shot across the bow, going back to July 16th, when he decided to basically bring those agencies, the NABU and SAPO agencies, under the control of the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine. So obviously for years, Zelensky has been pretty much doing as he wishes, as he sees fit, whether to protect his acolytes, to outlaw parties, essentially rendering this this democratic theater completely bereft of any kind of exterior signs of it. He's been going after the Ukrainian church, and he's been essentially pilfering, aid coming from the US, but not only, without much more of an eyebrow being raised in the West. So the question is, there are two questions: is why did he decide to do what he did, and why did he decide to do it now? And that brings us to what my book, essentially talked about, which is the origins of Russiagate, and who handled Russiagate, who acted under the coordination of the Ukrainian embassy in Washington and the US embassy in Kiev to engineer this political machination against at the time the then Trump campaign director Paul Manafort, who by all account was doing a very good job, because if we rewind the situation back in July 2016, Trump was doing very well in the polls. And obviously, a lot of it was attributed to Manafort's performance as campaign director. So I guess it was decided in the upper echelon that they had to go after someone who could undermine Trump's bid and create the predicate, lay the ground for what was going to become the Russiagate saga, which, unbeknownst to a lot of people, would think that the whole thing ended when Robert Mueller, then special prosecutor, released his report, compounded by the report by John Durham, actually had an echo during the 2020 election. And this is something that's being said openly by someone like Alexander Dubinsky, who was very close former associate of Zelensky. And as we all recall, the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, which contained a lot of incriminating evidence bearing on conflict of interest and embezzlement and all those kind of things, was somewhat deemed to be a Russian, not disinformation, but misinformation, as people would have it these days. And we know that Tony Blinken, who served then as Biden campaign director, solicited no less than 51 former and or current senior intelligence officials to sign a letter attesting that the laptop was all made up, essentially. So there is 2016, but there's also 2020. And one might argue there's also 2024, because we have good reason to believe that the Trump campaign was being monitored over the telephone during their communication by the incumbent administration. So it's an ongoing saga. It's a continuing crime, so to speak. There's no statute of limitation set in stone on this whole thing. But to be sure, and going back to the key premise here, NABU and SAPO played an instrumental role on the ground there in trying to have that case stick to Manafort. So one would think, because they were US instrumentalities, they were not agencies that were indigenous to Ukraine. They were pure creation of the US neo-colonial master, so to speak.
Let me just interrupt you briefly. So people who aren't familiar with NABU and SAPO, if you can give some background on that. These are two anti-corruption agencies set up when, let's say, the United States had full, viceroy control over the post-Maidan Ukrainian state. Everything was being run out of the U.S. Embassy, and they created these so-called anti-corruption agencies here to kind of monitor what was going on. Some say, Arnaud, to protect the real criminals, and to stop any potential real corruption investigations, to kind of put the kibosh on it. They created these, really run by the U.S., right?
Yeah, it's all about misdirection. It's basically to neutralize either people associated with the former regime or people who might be tempted to start criticizing the new state of affairs in Ukraine.
That makes sense. So now you have these two agencies, and suddenly Zelensky has announced a couple of weeks ago that he's going to take them and move these previously independent anti-corruption agencies under the prosecutor general's office, under his control, right?
Right. I mean, so Zelensky is being disingenuous, because he's saying essentially we're just making sure that each are going to have an office within the building of the prosecutor general's office. But nobody gets fooled by this. I mean, obviously, the idea is to have someone appointed by Zelensky to oversee those two agencies now. But now we have a new development, because while Zelensky looked dead set on doing what he ended up doing initially, now seemingly he's having misgivings and acting as if he's trying to reassure some people. I don't know which one. One could surmise that they are actually contradictory injunctions, putting Zelensky in a vice here, putting him between a rock and a hard place. Just when, for internal reason, the Trump administration decides to revive the Russiagate, we have Zelensky suddenly, even though he's not remotely connected to what goes on in the U.S. political scene, domestic political scene, decides to somewhat act as if he's trying to cover for what a faction, anti-Trump faction, might have been trying to cover. And so they basically give him the instruction to go after those agencies, not as much to bring them into some kind of conformity, but to make sure that in their archives, or to the extent there are still some employees who might have been participating in the Russiagate, those people and or those materials are either under control and or somewhat vaporized, eliminated. So that could be an explanation, and that seems even more plausible again, because now Zelensky is basically saying, we intend to preserve the independence. We're going to pass a new law, but the independence of those organs is going to be maintained. But no one is being fooled by this. And what's even more interesting is that now you have 70 members, MPs of his own party, who are somewhat showing reticence to sign the bill, owing to some statements made by the head of SAPO, who declared a couple of days ago that he was intending to go over the record of those who voted in favor of the new law and look into their respective background. So it's almost like behind the curtain, we are somewhat guessing the presence of two, one irresistible force and one inamovable object. But there's something does not make any sense at all. For someone who got away with murder, literally, suddenly to be somewhat, finding himself at the center of a configuration that he really resembles Maidan, the original Maidan coup. To be sure, we'll have to wait and see if those movements, those social movements, those public protests are sustained over in time. We know they've been spreading to a few towns in Ukraine, but you would think that the motivation behind mass protest against this regime would be something dealing with families trying to recover the corpses of their dear ones, because we know that there's been a game going on in the wake of the handover of the fallen soldiers, Ukrainian fallen soldiers. There are now reports that families cannot get their hands on their dear ones, even though they know for a fact that the corpses are back in Ukraine, but no corpses, no compensation. So this would be actually a good reason for them to mobilize en masse and occupy the Maidan for as long as it takes until they get their corpses back. But no, what we have is people suddenly feeling, corruption, as if corruption wasn't a staple. Suddenly you have people there that are so concerned about corruption that they would want to preserve US installed organs as if those could be counted on to weed out the corruption in Ukraine. So this whole thing makes no sense, whichever way you look at it. And I surmise that there's a connection to Russiagate, obviously, and some pushback from those who might have played a role in it.
So I want to ask you, Arnaud, is the timing of this? We see Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI. Here she is with Caroline Leavitt, Trump's spokesmodel, White House spokesmodel, and so this is coming out at the same time the Epstein scandal is being covered up, and a lot of people are skeptical about this rebooting of Russiagate at the very moment. Obviously, it has great partisan traction with Fox News and so forth because it's Obama back in the crosshairs, Brennan, all of the old nemesises of Trump in the crosshairs, James Clapper and James Comey, etc. Do you think those are credible accusations that this revising Russiagate now is to take attention off of Epstein and Gaza, for that matter, because the tide is turning of public opinion against Israel and the U.S.'s role in the genocide in Gaza? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say yes and no. Yes, because obviously this is a live story. It's been a live story for the last almost 10 years now. And it is such a lie of such magnitude on the American people. I mean,
I think we lost Arnaud for a moment there. We're going to try to bring him back. We're having some audio issues on the connection. We're coming over a few thousand miles of underwater cables. So we'll try to bring him back momentarily. We'll just wait a moment as we reboot his connection. But that's the big question. Is Russiagate being revitalized in order to take attention off of all these other absolutely smoldering scandals that are threatening to fracture and damage the MAGA movement, Trump's base, basically? It's a legitimate question because a lot of people are saying, well, there's nothing new here in the sort of Russiagate file at all. There's nothing. There might be some more sort of notes that have been unearthed. We'll show you some slides and some evidence that's been circulating on X with some of the big influential accounts. But the gist of that story, the meat of that story, has really been exposed for quite some time. So it's not really a revelation. They might have a few more receipts, but how could it garner the type of impact that you would have with a scandal like the Epstein scandal, for instance? I think we've got Arnaud back here. We're going to bring him up. Arnaud, can you hear us? Yeah. Oh, I think he's still working on his audio, so we'll try to bring Arnaud back as soon as he has his audio sorted out. So this raises a lot of interesting questions. We'll bring some of those images up on screen so we can have a look here. Here's one of them. So this is a tweet here. So the SBU has started persecuting protesters opposing Zelensky's crackdown on Nabu and Sapu. So this is interesting. So Ukrainians are skeptical of what Zelensky is trying to do here. Zelensky's sort of pulling a Netanyahu. He's basically doing a power grab, an executive power grab here in order to, who knows, there's probably a lot of money leaking out right now. As we're looking at the downfall of Zelensky, a lot of people are packing duffel bags full of cash and pilfering, skimming, whatever. And so here's a veteran here was summoned for, Army veteran, Dmytro Olenki, was summoned for interrogation. He was threatened with criminal charges and accused of acting, quote, in the enemy's interests. So by protesting Zelensky, according to the Zelensky regime, is working in the interests of Russia. Okay. Honestly, you couldn't make it up. So authorities are spreading claims that he is a fake soldier. So basically trying to steal his valor as well. Let's see if we can bring Arnaud back for a moment here. Arnaud, can you hear us?
Yes, it's all good again. It's
okay,
very strange. Just when you start talking about certain issues, some things happen.
There's some distance between us, granted, going across the Iron Curtain. Obviously, the Iron Curtain's fallen on the West, as we know. So here's a veteran soldier, as I was telling our audience, Arnaud, being basically maligned and smeared and defamed by the Zelensky government for protesting against Zelensky. So it's quite extraordinary. So this kind of desperate authoritarian measures here, it's almost, getting vibes of the final days in the bunker with Uncle Adolf. Mike Benz, and there's just a caveat, Mike Benz does not comment on Israel. He just doesn't. So he keeps himself busy with Ukraine and everything else, but he absolutely will not touch or comment or say anything. That's my beef with Mike Benz. He's good on a lot of issues, but obviously he can't speak about Gaza or Israel. But he's saying here, citing the approval of Hillary Clinton on July 28th of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal, claiming interference by Russian security services. CIA Director John Brennan 3 months before Russiagate. We kind of knew all this before, Arnaud, and that's my question. There's a few interesting receipts here, but none of this is new information. Not really. But yet, here we see the broad-based effort from MAGA, from all the allies of Trump, to really push this hard right now. What do you make of this? Again, is this a distraction from the other incredible scandals that are destroying MAGA?
Well, I think obviously the what's the expression? The answer is in the pudding or something like this. Yes, obviously it's connected. It's a counter flare to the Epstein affair, the Epstein files, in which Trump's name is rumored to figure. Now, in what capacity, we don't know. What we know is DOJ has sent someone to visit Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's shown herself to be very cooperative to such extent that we have now White House insiders alluding to the possibility of issuing a pardon to Maxwell down the road.
Wait,
So
hold on
you can't make that
for
up.
a minute. No, so she solicited the DOJ. She initiated communication with the DOJ. Is she in the driving seat here to write her ticket out? Because she could give them nothing and still write her exit ticket. I mean, she's in a really powerful position with this scandal, the press, Trump wanting to kind of wash it off. Maxwell can write her ticket out.
Yes, but I think just remaining mum might not be enough. It might be asked from her to politically lean in a certain direction. So as to, short of releasing everything and let the public judge, have someone who, by all account, was at the center of the whole thing, basically say, yeah, I'll account for X, Y, and Z, but ABC, in as far as Trump is concerned, there's nothing to be seen here. And people will say, but what did you get in exchange to somewhat exonerate Trump? She will say, well, nothing.
Nothing.
I'm just telling the truth because that's basically, one of the conditions for me to consider getting favorable treatment or early release. She won't mention the P word. She'll leave it out, for Trump on his way out to do it. But I guess that's the idea. It's like, if you play ball with us, we'll put you in a special treatment until the end of the current term, and we'll take care of you the way you take care of us. And we can even set you up on ABC or CBS or some kind of primetime networks, and whoever is assuming Barbara Walters' job these days, that's it. Et voila.
She'll have a podcast. Okay, back to Zelensky. Let's bring this back here. So Russiagate moving pretty swiftly here, and so this is really, I think, in a way, this is going to damage Zelensky because his legitimacy is predicated on, the fact that this is somehow a democratic government in Kiev, and the Maidan was a peaceful revolution of dignity and all this other carry on, and that Trump and the Russians were up to no good. I mean, a lot of Democrats still believe this here. But the timing of this, Arnaud, is just incredible because Zelensky is on the way out, and it certainly looks like he is. He's making all the moves of somebody that is in his desperate last throes of power, okay? So the question is, if Zelensky is on the way out, who is going to replace him? That is the big question. Here's Matt Taibbi here, basically saying John Brennan, former CIA director, is a C- brain who thinks he's an A+. Remember his written notes about the Clinton campaign proposal to stir up Trump-Russia controversy in the summer of 2016 opened that avenue of inquiry as well. Intelligence Director John Brennan subsequently briefed Obama and other senior national security officials on the intelligence, including the alleged approval by Hillary Clinton on July 26, 2016, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Trump. So we knew all this. I mean, this carries straight into the Russian hack hoax, the DNC hack, then implicating Julian Assange as somehow working with the Russians, the Podesta emails and so forth. That's how they brought in the Russia angle to basically snag Assange, and then the fake DNC Russian hack story, which was used also to escalate this, and then right to Spygate with George Papadopoulos. FISA warrants were issued. All of a sudden, the Obama's got the FBI spying on the Trump transition team. And then you had Manafort basically as Arnaud was saying before, Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign director, taken down with this Ukrainian scam that what they called the Black Ledger. This is all serialized in Arnaud's book. And so Betsy Ross, interesting title for a Twitter account. Was he dumb enough to put all that in his book? Wow, he really must have thought he was invincible. They're talking about John Brennan. Yeah, not the brightest bulb in the box, John Brennan. As we knew from the leaked emails, he has some very weird proclivities. So while all this is going on, so now if there's a Zelensky ouster that's imminent, if there's a Zelensky ouster that's imminent, then who is going to replace Zelensky? We speculated on this back in January. We were looking at all the various potential candidates. Petro Poroshenko was throwing his hat in the ring. Alexei Arestovich doing the podcast circuit in the United States. He was getting a lot of play. But the one that we're really looking at, we'll bring Arnaud back in a minute because we looks like we have our connection with Arnaud. But this is the guy that is more likely. This is the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, very much linked to the neo-Nazi battalions, an extremist, a war criminal by some people's estimation, Valery Zaluzhny, who was then whisked off to London and given elocution lessons, thrown a nice suit on him. They throw suits on a lot of people these days, as we saw with Syria. Anyway, and here he is. He's got his memoirs out. He's now become a politician. So from Zelensky henchman in the field to eloquent politician in a Savile Row suit, that's Valery Zaluzhny. The British are grooming him to replace Zelensky. That's what we're being told from the people that we know who are somewhat knowledgeable and close to these events as well. Let's try to bring Arnaud back and get his opinion on this. Arnaud, so if Zelensky is on the way out, is it going to be Zaluzhny? Is this a battle between the U.S. and the British about who's going to replace Zelensky? Because the British have been grooming Zaluzhny for quite a while now with the absolute intent that he was going to be parachuted back to Kiev. This is what we've always believed. It's what we've always been saying. What are your thoughts on this, the timing of all this with Russiagate coming, Zelensky on the rocks? Is this the opportune time for an ouster?
Well, I think Zaluzhny was always next for the job. But yes, as you are alluding to, I think the Russiagate flare-up has accelerated the schedule. And obviously, this is becoming next to impossible now for the current political at-large in Ukraine to remain viable politically. So yes, there might be a makeover. It's not really a change; it's more like a makeover. And to the extent Zaluzhny is a military man, he commands some measure of respect from the troops. And to the extent he concedes on some of the points that Russia is being adamant about, it would not be perceived as somewhat betraying his promises, because he would be talking as a military man who's caring for his human lives, and who acts responsibly, someone who understands those matters. Some people, just for the form, just for sake of it, might try to begrudge him the so-called counteroffensive, which was a dismal failure. But this will be somewhat swept under the rug. But yes, the timing is everything, and I think the Brits are working in coordination with the Americans, not against. Yes, okay. Yes. But it's just that Zelensky has outstayed his welcome now. It's just getting too complicated.
Yeah. So there's the next president.
And actually, Zaluzhny could be coming in and maybe doing the bidding of the Trump administration once he's in office. It's possible as well.
So what? We just got a couple minutes left, Arnaud. The really important question is here: if Zelensky is out and Zaluzhny's in, what can Zaluzhny do with the current battlefield, with the current impasse Is he going to bring this thing to a negotiated settlement, or is he going to extend the proxy war? Which will it be?
Well, I think he's going to try to freeze the situation first and foremost. So agree by and large to Russian demands for a ceasefire, a viable ceasefire, so he can get a quick political win. He will be known as the one who successfully extracted a ceasefire out of Russia. And then there will be long protracted negotiation on the substantive matters with somewhat an agreement on the principle, but nothing really settled, set in stone per se. This idea is, again, it's so the Minsk Accord playbook all over again, or the Idlib province. You freeze the front line, get yourself back in shape, and give it another shot in 5, 6, 7 years.
Okay.
But they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose more than what they already got, because Russia is not going to stop. So under the current trajectory, with the current political personnel, Russia will basically accomplish the goals set out when the special military operation started, which includes denazification. That means regime change in Kiev. So to prevent that, they have to give something tangible, something concrete, something that the Russian can live with. And Zaluzhny comes in and does just that. He again has this. He's a military man. Now, to be sure, he has a lot to answer, not least of which, looking the other way while the retaliation battalions were reintegrated into the Ukrainian armed forces and committing yet more war crimes. He basically condoned it because he was the commander in chief. So, the responsibility lies at his feet. But to the extent he assumes the presidency, quote unquote, at least until there are new elections, they will prop him up. Washington will do what's necessary, and London will do what's necessary to make sure that he goes from an interim figure to a bona fide president through fair elections, or at least perceived as fair. Yeah. And that will do the trick. That's my perception of the near term, medium term situation.
Because that's what everybody wants to know. That's the big question is where is this heading in the short term and the near term. Of course, I think that's quite a cynical and shrewd assessment on your part that they want to pause this thing, rearm, regroup, and then have another go in 5 or 6 years. By the rhetoric we're hearing from Europe, from Britain, that does sound very plausible, Arnaud. So obviously not a great option for the world, for the region, much less for Ukraine, but for the West, probably.
It's the same as what we see in West Asia, to be sure. We have a go at it for 12 days. Nothing is settled. All the protagonists remain keen on certain strategic agendas, and so we just live to fight another day. But this is the nature of this somewhat low fuel world war that we are going through right now. We have flare-ups, and then we have periods of still moments until everybody is ready to go and give it a shot again. Go at it again.
Arnaud Develay, political consultant, also geopolitical analyst and author of Foreign Entanglements, Ukraine, Biden, and the Fractured American Political Consensus. Thank you very much for joining us this week on the Sunday Wire.
Thank you, Patrick.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That is Arnaud Develay. We'll be following more about this story. Obviously, we won't be able to do Overdrive this week because of other commitments that we have to attend to right after the show. But we thought it was really important to bring this story to your attention. So very complex, the interworkings of the Zelensky regime, but nonetheless, it's moving. Things are moving. There's going to be a change, a surprise coming, maybe in the next few weeks. maybe quicker than we think. Trump put a deadline on Russia to sort of, agree on something. I think he gave a 50-day deadline. What's coming at the end of 50 days? A surprise attack, or maybe Zelensky's out? We'll find out. We'll find out. That's the big question everybody wants to know. Listen, I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. Thank you for joining us. Thank you guys for supporting the Midweek Wire, our new show that's been getting some excellent traction. We had a great segment with Freddie Ponton just on Wednesday. Those archives are up at 21stcenturywire.com, as are the Sunday Wire archives. We're here every week, live and direct, 12 till 3 Eastern Standard Time, 8 till 5 UK time. The archives are there as well if you miss any of our shows. You'll also find us on the various platforms. And again, if you want to help us, take our YouTube link and share it on X, on Facebook with a comment. YouTube is throttling us so heavily. So like and subscribe on YouTube as well. And if you want to support this platform, we need it now more than ever. Go to 21stcenturywire.com, donate or subscribe to 21wire.tv. We need more people on board to help pay for this platform. Our overheads are massive. We have a great team. We commission journalistic work and investigations. We're also going to be covering some stories this week as well. So again, we need your help to make that happen. Those of you who have supported us, we really appreciate it. We are a OG independent media outlet going since 2009. And we couldn't do it without you guys. We wouldn't be here without you guys. And we're going to need you guys to continue doing what we do, to go from strength to strength. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. This has been an excellent report and episode here at the Sunday Wire. We'll see you guys when we see you. I hope you have a great week. And by the way, we have some new reports coming out on Monday. So watch 21stcenturywire.com, especially to do with the situation in Gaza. There's also a new whistleblower with this humanitarian debacle that's going on. I won't even call it humanitarian, but the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. There's going to be some news coming, and also I'll be also doing a video report on this as well. We'll be broadcasting that on our various platforms. Listen, that's all we've got time for. Take care, you guys. We'll see you soon. All the best.